But I have that older brother syndrome against John. You know, if I jump at him, he's going to flinch. It's something when you instill something in someone's head and beat him so many times, it's one of those things.
New video has surfaced of Arthur Jones in his final moments, jumping out of his hospital bed, desperately looking for his younger brother Jon Jones, even while in the middle of surgery. Moments later, tragedy struck as Arthur collapsed and died. Let's get into details. A family of champions. The sports world was rocked on October 3, 2025, when news broke that Arthur Jones III, a former NFL defensive lineman and Super Bowl champion, had passed away suddenly at his home in Pompey, New York. He was just 39 years old. But Arthur wasn't just any athlete. He was the eldest brother in one of the most remarkable athletic families in American sports history, the older brother of UFC heavyweight champion Jon Bones Jones and former NFL Pro Bowler Chandler Jones. To understand the magnitude of this loss, we need to go back to where it all began, to a family that would produce not one, not two, but three elite professional athletes who would dominate at the highest levels of their respective sports. The Jones family story is one of extraordinary athletic achievement, but it's also a story marked by profound tragedy and loss that would shape these young men into the champions they would become. Arthur Willis Jones III was born on June 3, 1986, in Rochester, New York, to Arthur Jones Jr., a pastor, and Camille Jones. He was the firstborn of what would become a family of athletic prodigies. Growing up in Endicott, New York, Arthur was followed by Jonathan Dwight Jones, John, born July 19, 1987, and then Chandler James Jones, born February 27, 1990. From the very beginning, the Jones household was a crucible of competition, where three brothers would push each other to levels of excellence that would seem almost superhuman to outsiders. But the Jones family story isn't just one of triumph. It's a story shadowed by heartbreak that began early. When Arthur was in 8th grade, the family experienced a devastating loss. Their sister Carmen died from a brain tumor at just 17 years old. This tragedy would be the first of several that would test the resilience of this remarkable family, instilling in the brothers a deep appreciation for family bonds and the fragility of life itself. The competitive fire between the three brothers became legendary in their community. These weren't just casual sibling rivalries. These were intense, physical competitions that would forge the mental toughness all three would later display in professional sports. And Arthur, as the oldest, set the standard for what was possible. He was the trailblazer, the one who showed his younger brothers that kids from Endicott could compete at the highest levels. Arthur's athletic prowess manifested early in wrestling. He became a two-time New York State heavyweight wrestling champion in high school, an achievement that would have lasting implications for his family's athletic legacy. In one interview, Arthur reflected on his wrestling dominance with characteristic confidence.
Two-time New York State champion. I was ranked number one in the nation at one time, not to toot my own horn.
But it was his relationship with John that would prove particularly influential. Arthur wasn't just John's brother, he was his first opponent, his toughest training partner, and the measuring stick against which John would gauge his own abilities. The dynamic between them was complex, mixing brotherly love with fierce competition. Arthur spoke about this relationship with a mixture of pride and humor.
But I have that older brother syndrome against John. You know, if I jump at him, he's going to flinch. It's something when you instill something in someone's head and beat him so many times, it's one of those things.
This wasn't just big brother bragging. Arthur's wrestling pedigree and physical dominance over his younger brothers created a psychological dynamic that would shape John's competitive mindset. Even Arthur's coach noticed the effect.
You know, his manager, Maki Kawa, he laughs, you know. He's like, man, Art, he's like, I don't know what you did to that boy, but it's something about you, you know.
The brothers' training sessions were the stuff of legend in the Jones household. John has spoken extensively about how Arthur influenced his path to MMA greatness, crediting him as a major influence and describing him as the trailblazer who set the standard for athletic excellence in the family. John himself has said, both of my brothers, everyone knew they were going to be in the NFL by the time they were in college. I pretty much just wanted to keep up with the Joneses. But the competitive nature between the brothers sometimes escalated beyond training. In one memorable incident that John later recounted, the two younger brothers decided to take matters into their own hands.
There was a time me, Arthur, and Chandler got in a fight. Me and Chandler ended up jumping Arthur, and we held him down. Wedged between a wall and the bed. We held him down for almost about an hour straight, just punching him and, choking him, just beating his ass, quite frankly.
The aftermath of this incident revealed just how intense their sibling rivalry could be.
He was so mad. I remember he we got to a point where he was so exhausted that I had to hold him for a minute by myself. And I told Chandler, I said, you go, open the front door. I'm going to let him go. We're going to get out of here. Chandler opened the door. It's open. We go take it off down the street. Arthur comes out crying and sweaty and just so pissed off.
Yet despite these intense battles, the brothers shared an unbreakable bond. Arthur himself acknowledged the mutual respect that had developed as they matured.
We're too old now to be fighting. It's a respect level thing. And, if I tell them to go do something, they go and do it.
This dynamic of competition tempered by deep family loyalty was something instilled in them by their mother, Camille. Arthur's brothers spoke about their upbringing and the family code they lived by.
My mom always taught us, mom and dad, my mom was really the bully of the family. That's where John get it from. But my mom always taught us, one fight, we all fight. So we jumped a lot of people growing up, me and my brother, and that is one of the things, that's how we were raised. And if one didn't fight, the one that didn't fight and didn't jump the guy we're fighting, the one son would get whooped.
This one for all for one mentality would define the Jones brothers throughout their lives and careers. They weren't just siblings, they were a unit, a team that faced the world together. Arthur's path led him to Syracuse University, where he would establish himself as a dominant defensive lineman. His college career showcased the combination of wrestling technique, raw power, and relentless motor that would make him an NFL prospect. During his time at Syracuse, he earned recognition for his ability to disrupt offenses, with notable performances that caught the attention of NFL scouts. In one game against Illinois, a local blogger and radio host wrote, "Arthur Jones is having the game of his life right now," capturing the dominant performances that were becoming Arthur's trademark. The dedication Arthur showed to his craft was evident in how he managed injuries. In a game against South Florida on November 11th, Jones injured his ankle on a chop block. Rather than risk further injury, Coach Greg Robinson held him out of the next game against Connecticut, stating, "Arthur has been too good of a football player for us to risk putting him out there and really getting him hurt." This cautious approach preserved Arthur for what would become a successful NFL career. Meanwhile, John was carving his own path in mixed martial arts, and interestingly, Arthur nearly followed him into the cage. During the 2011 NFL lockout, Arthur seriously considered competing in MMA.
You know what? During the lockout, I entertained it. I trained, and I was going to take a fight, not the UFC, but just a fight when I was in Baltimore. And, my coach was, you're crazy, but I've been training with my brother for a while, and I'm very confident in my wrestling ability. And, around the locker room, I'm quick to foot sweep someone or jack double them, blast double,
The thought of Arthur Jones competing in MMA wasn't far-fetched. With his wrestling pedigree and his training alongside John, he certainly had the skill set. But Arthur remained committed to football, though he left the door open.
And who knows? I'm feeling younger. My body's feeling good. I had a few injuries over the career, but I'm feeling good, man. And
that's not
we'll see what
happens.
In 2010, Arthur's hard work paid off when the Baltimore Ravens selected him in the 5th round of the NFL draft. He was joining one of the NFL's most storied franchises, and he would soon prove that he belonged at the highest level of professional football. Super Bowl glory and professional trials. Arthur Jones' NFL career would be defined by one transcendent moment that every professional athlete dreams of, winning a Super Bowl championship. But the path to that pinnacle and the years that followed would be marked by both triumph and tribulation, mirroring the complex journey of his younger brother John in the UFC. Arthur spent his first 4 NFL seasons with the Baltimore Ravens, starting 20 games and becoming a key rotational player on the defensive line. During the 2012 season, everything came together for the Ravens. The team, led by legendary linebacker Ray Lewis in his final season, embarked on an improbable playoff run that would culminate in Super Bowl Eagles against the San Francisco 49ers. The game, played on February 3rd, 2013, at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans, would become one of the most memorable Super Bowls in NFL history, not just for the game itself, but for the bizarre power outage that interrupted play. But before that happened, Arthur Jones made his mark on football's biggest stage. In a crucial moment during the game, Jones sacked 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick, disrupting San Francisco's offensive rhythm. He also recorded a fumble recovery, contributing to a defensive effort that would ultimately secure a 34-31 victory for the Ravens. It was the pinnacle moment of Arthur's football career, a Super Bowl champion at just 26 years old, with his entire career still ahead of him. The image of Arthur celebrating with his teammates, Ray Lewis's emotional farewell tour complete, represented everything the Jones family had worked for. Arthur was the first of the 3 brothers to reach the summit of his sport, setting the standard once again as he had throughout their childhood. The pride within the Jones Jones family must have been immeasurable. Their oldest son, the Trailblazer, had achieved what millions dream of, but only a select few ever accomplish. Following the Super Bowl victory, Arthur's value in the NFL marketplace skyrocketed. In 2014, he signed a lucrative 5-year, $33 million contract with the Indianapolis Colts, a deal that reflected the Colts' belief that Arthur could anchor their defensive line for years to come. It was a life-changing contract, the kind of financial security that most athletes never achieve, but football is a brutal business, and Arthur's time in Indianapolis would prove far more challenging than anyone anticipated. Over 3 seasons with the Colts, he appeared in just 17 games, his tenure plagued by injuries that prevented him from ever establishing the consistency the team had hoped for when they invested so heavily in him. An ankle injury in 2015 was particularly problematic, limiting his effectiveness and raising questions about whether he could ever return to his Super Bowl form. The frustration of being injured, of not being able to contribute to his team, must have weighed heavily on Arthur. For an athlete who had defined himself by his toughness and reliability, being sidelined was perhaps more painful than any physical injury. Some media outlets and fans began labeling his high-value contract as a bust, though these criticisms often failed to account for the reality that injuries are an unavoidable part of football's violent nature. Then came 2016, a year that would prove difficult for both Arthur and his brother John. In July 2016, Arthur was suspended for the first 4 games of the NFL season for violating the league's policy on performance-enhancing substances. The suspension was a significant blow to Arthur's reputation and his already injury-shortened tenure with the Colts. What made this moment particularly notable was the timing. Jon Jones was also facing a suspension from the UFC for a PED violation around the same time, leading to inevitable media comparisons and discussions about the brothers' troubles. The Jones family, which had always presented a united front, was now facing scrutiny on multiple fronts. Arthur issued a statement accepting responsibility for the violation, but did not elaborate on the specific substance involved. For someone who had always carried himself with pride and integrity, this public acknowledgement of a mistake must have been difficult, yet it demonstrated a maturity and willingness to own his actions rather than make excuses. The suspension, combined with his injury history, effectively derailed what remained of Arthur's prime years in the NFL. He finished the 2016 season with the Colts, and then moved to the Washington football team, then called the Redskins, for the 2017 season, his final year in professional football. Arthur retired from the NFL in 2018 after 7 seasons, finishing his career with 173 tackles, 10 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Respectable numbers, though not the dominant statistical legacy he might have achieved without the injury struggles that defined his later years. But statistics can never fully capture a player's impact, especially for a defensive lineman whose job often involves occupying blockers to free up teammates for glory. Throughout these professional ups and downs, Arthur remained deeply connected to his family, particularly his brothers. The Jones brothers' careers often intersected in fascinating ways, with all 3 dealing with the pressures of professional sports simultaneously. While Arthur was battling through injuries with the Colts, John was establishing himself as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history, and Chandler was emerging as one of the NFL's premier pass rushers, eventually earning 4 Pro Bowl selections. Brothers often spoke about each other in interviews, their mutual respect and support evident despite the competitive fire that still burned between them. When Arthur attended John's UFC fights, the nerves he experienced revealed just how much he cared.
I mean, I get more nervous than that. I can play football games all day. I can do it in my sleep. But when my brother's out there in the octagon, man, I get the worst bubble guts, sweats. I'm a nervous wreck. And he's been successful for a long time, but I can't control what happens when that cage lock. And me being an older brother,
This vulnerability from the tough-as-nails defensive lineman showed a different side of Arthur, the protective older brother who would always worry about his siblings no matter how successful they became. It was this genuine care for family that would define Arthur's legacy as much as anything he did on the football field. In 2017, the Jones family faced another devastating loss when their mother, Camille, passed away at the age of 55 due to complications from diabetes. This was the second profound loss for the brothers, following their sister Carmen's death years earlier. Losing their mother, who had been such a formative influence in instilling their competitive spirit and family loyalty, was a blow that affected all 3 brothers deeply. Arthur spoke often about the importance of his family after his mother's passing, and those who knew him noted how family-focused he became in his post-NFL life. The losses the Jones family had endured seemed to intensify the bonds between the surviving family members, making the time they had together even more precious. After retiring from football, Arthur largely stepped away from the public spotlight. Unlike some former players players who transition into broadcasting or coaching, Arthur seemed to prefer a quieter life, though he remained connected to the sports world through his brother's continued success. He was known to attend John's UFC fights, including John's November 2024 bout against Stipe Miocic at UFC 309, showing his continued support for his younger brother's career. Those who knew Arthur in his post-NFL years remember him not for his statistics or his injury struggles, but for his character. Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta would later describe Arthur's big, bright smile, infectious energy, and eternal positivity that touched everyone he met. This positivity, maintained even through professional disappointments and personal losses, spoke to the strength of character that Arthur possessed. The years after football also saw Arthur dealing with health challenges, though the specifics of these issues were not widely publicized. Reports indicate he had been battling health issues in recent years, and he had an implanted defibrillator, a medical device used to monitor and regulate heart rhythms. The toll that professional football takes on athletes' bodies is well documented, and the physical demands Arthur endured during his 7-year career may have contributed to his later health struggles. Yet Arthur appeared to be managing these challenges and living his life with the same positive energy that defined him. There was no indication that October 3rd, 2025 would be any different from any other day. Arthur was home in Pompey, New York, likely going about his normal routine, perhaps thinking about his brothers and their upcoming endeavors. No one could have anticipated what was about to happen. A sudden goodbye. October 3rd, 2025 started like any other morning in Pompey, New York, a small town just south of Syracuse. Arthur Jones III, at 39 years old, was at home, the same area where he had attended Syracuse University and built so many memories during his college football career. But shortly before 11 a.m. Eastern Time, something went terribly wrong. Arthur's implanted defibrillator suddenly activated, detecting a cardiac event. These devices are designed to save lives, automatically delivering an electrical shock to restore normal heart rhythm and simultaneously alerting medical professionals. The device performed as designed, automatically notifying Arthur's doctor and triggering a 911 emergency response. In police audio obtained by media outlets, an official can be heard stating that a 39-year-old male's defibrillator went off, and he received a shock and now he's not answering the phone. The urgency in those words hints at the race against time that was unfolding. Emergency medical services, fire crews, and police were immediately dispatched to Arthur's residence. But when first responders arrived at Arthur's home, they found him unresponsive. Despite the defibrillator's activation and the rapid emergency response, Arthur Jones III was pronounced dead at his residence. There would be no ambulance ride to the hospital, no last-ditch efforts in an emergency room. Arthur had passed away before help could arrive, a sudden cardiac event claiming his life in a matter of moments. The news spread quickly through NFL circles that Friday afternoon. The Baltimore Ravens, the team with which Arthur had achieved his greatest professional success, announced his death in a statement, though they did not immediately specify a cause. The statement from Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta captured the essence of who Arthur was. "We are terribly saddened to learn of Arthur Jones' sudden passing. Arthur's presence was a gift to everyone he encountered. His big, bright smile, infectious energy, and eternal positivity created a presence that continuously uplifted others. He was kind, courteous, and enthusiastic, always displaying a love for family, teammates, and friends." The word sudden in that statement couldn't begin to capture the shock that reverberated through the sports world. Arthur was just 39 years old, young by any measure, but especially so in an era when modern medicine and the resources available to former professional athletes have extended many lives well beyond what was possible in previous generations. How could someone so young, someone who had been a professional athlete just a few years earlier, be gone? As of October 4th, 2025, the official cause of Arthur's death has not been publicly confirmed by his family or authorities, though the defibrillator activation strongly suggests a cardiac event. Arthur had a pre-existing heart condition that required the implanted defibrillator, though the specific nature of this condition had not been widely publicized during his lifetime. The sports community's response was immediate and heartfelt. Former Ravens teammates shared their grief and memories. Haloti Ngata, who played alongside Arthur in Baltimore, posted, "R.I.P. Arthur Jones, a great teammate and brother. Prayers to the Jones family." From the UFC world, where Arthur was perhaps even better known as Jon Jones's brother, the tributes poured in as well. UFC commentator Jon Anik shared a heartfelt message on X, formerly Twitter, highlighting Arthur's warmth and impact on the UFC community. "This is profoundly sad. My heart is heavy for Jon and the entire Jones family." Conor McGregor and other UFC personalities also paid tribute on social media. Syracuse University, Arthur's alma mater, honored him through athletic director John Wildhack, who stated, "Arthur Jones was a tremendous player and even better person." The Rochester, New York community, Arthur's hometown, also mourned the loss of a local hero who had risen from Endicott High School to NFL glory. On social media platforms like X and Reddit, fans expressed shock at Arthur's young age. Many discussions emerged about the long-term health effects that professional football can have on athletes. Some speculated about potential connections between Arthur's NFL career and his heart condition, noting the physical toll that years of high-impact collisions can take on the body. Others pointed to the Jones family's history of health challenges, including their mother's death from diabetes complications. One particularly poignant aspect of the tragedy was the timing relative to Jon Jones's career. Jon was preparing for UFC 309, scheduled for November 16, 2025, where he was set to face Stipe Miocic. Arthur had been a regular attendee at Jon's fights, including his most recent bout, and the question of how this loss would affect Jon's preparation and mental state became a topic of discussion. As of the day after Arthur's death, Jon Jones had not made a public statement, and it's easy to understand why. What words could possibly capture the loss of someone who had been such a formative influence, who had set the standard, who had been the first to show what was possible? Past interviews with Jon surfaced in the wake of Arthur's death, showing just how important Arthur had been to Jon's journey. In previous interviews, Jon had credited Arthur as the inspiration for his own combat sports career, describing their sibling rivalries as building blocks for his resilience. There was even the story of Arthur nearly pursuing MMA himself, training with Jon during the 2011 NFL lockout. One can't help but wonder what might have been if Arthur had taken that path, if we might have seen the two brothers competing in the same sport. The loss hit particularly hard, given the Jones family's history of tragedy. Their sister Carmen's death from a brain tumor when she was just 17. Their mother Camille's death in 2017 from diabetes complications at age 55. And now Arthur, the oldest brother, the trailblazer, gone at 39. The Jones family, which had achieved so much and inspired so many, had now lost 3 members far too soon. The tragedy sparked broader conversations about athlete health, particularly for former NFL players. The physical demands of professional football are well documented, and former players often face a range of health challenges after their careers end. While there's no confirmed connection between Arthur's NFL career and his heart condition, the discussion highlighted the ongoing need for better long-term health monitoring and support for retired athletes. Some fans on social media called for greater transparency about causes of death for young athletes, arguing that understanding these tragedies could help prevent future losses. Others stressed the importance of respecting the Jones family's privacy during their time of grief. The family has kept details private, which is entirely their right, though this has left many questions unanswered. The story of Arthur Jones III is ultimately a story about family, about the bonds that tie us together and the ways we influence each other's lives. It's about being the oldest brother, carrying the weight of expectations and responsibilities, setting the standard even when you're struggling yourself. It's about maintaining positivity and infectious energy, even through injuries and setbacks. It's about loving your family fiercely and being there for them through triumphs and tragedies. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.